Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Israel, sort of. My name is Brian Green, and I'm honored to partner with Daniel to be your Zoom captains for today. My wife, Ruth Green, and I are proud to be mission chairs. Little did we know when we signed up for this in what was then 2019, this would be like the longest mission ever. So we'd still be having the mission in April of 2021. But we're very proud to do it and honored to be a part of it, along with our co-chairs, Lynn and Jay Schwartz and Stuart and Don Siegel. Additionally, we're very grateful for the support of our corporate partners, Alliance and Dominion Payroll, and I'll say their name again real slowly, Alliance and Dominion Payroll. Their generous support allows us to maximize our impact in the community. I hope you've enjoyed the mission so far. We've done some really cool things. We've traveled the path of Aliyah, immigration through Jaffa, sipped wine with friends across the Southeast, United States and Israel, which was really cool. That was fun. We cooked alongside award-winning chefs, and today we will hike the depth and breadth of Israel as we walk, ride, and travel the Israel Trail. And a few words about the trail. More than 10,000 hikers a year take 45 to 60 days to hike the 683 miles of the Israeli National Trail. And today, we're going to do it in an hour. So the trail crosses the entire country from the north near the Lebanese border all the way down to the far south in Eilat. The trail was the inspiration of an Israeli journalist named Avraham Tamir, and he inaugurated the trail in 1995. And in 2012, the National Geographic named it one of the holy grails of hikes. So today, we bring you the Holy Grail. But don't worry, we're not going to walk all 683 miles, but hopefully over the next hour, you'll get a taste of the trail and also increase your desire to join us next year in Israel for the real thing. So now I want to say that is a good time for those of you that want to jump on your Peloton or your treadmill or go outside. It's beautiful outside. We want this to be an active session, so feel free to move around. You can use the chat function on your Zoom if you have a question, or it's a fairly small group. So feel free also to just interrupt on the fly if it's appropriate. And if you do a chat or whatever, Daniel and I will be monitoring that and make sure we get your question answered. And so now I want to introduce our tour guide, Itai Gat, Dr. Gat. He will be leading our hike today. And Itai, this is a really cool background. So he graduated from the esteemed Israeli military Talpiot program, and he later served in the IDF Research and Development Corps, and he received his PhD from the Hebrew University focusing on brain sciences. And he eventually landed at Mobileye, becoming a senior vice president. And for over 15 years, he worked towards making advanced driving assistance systems a reality. This is the automated driving that parks your car for you and veers you into the lane that you're not to stay out of the lane you're not supposed to be in. Those kinds of things. So it's a really interesting background, and he also has nursed another passion, which is his love for the land of Israel, its scenery, technology, wildlife, and unique history. He's particularly fascinated by the amazing city where he lives, that is Jerusalem. And in 2018, he embarked on a new career as a full-time tour guide, just in time for COVID. In this capacity, Itai is able to fulfill his passion and direct his energy towards conveying this love of the land to Israelis and tourists alike. Itai is married with 3 children, and like I said, he lives in Jerusalem. This I thought was neat. He's a dedicated triathlete, and he volunteers with the Zahal, I hope I said that right, IDF Disabled Veterans Organization, where he helps rebuild wounded veterans' lives through sport. So he's got the background in automated driving, brain sciences, and triathlete. So we're in good hands. So Itai, the trail is yours, and thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you for having me. And I'll start to share with the view of Israel as we see it from way above. So, as you mentioned last time, we entered Israel through the Mediterranean and visited Jaffa. And next week, we are going to go to visit Jerusalem, which is going to be a wonderful treat for everybody. But this time, we are going to visit the Israel National Trail, which you see now in front of you. Now, you already gave a few details, and I'd like to expand on that. The trail crosses all over Israel, starting way south at the Gulf of Eilat or the Gulf of Aqaba, and going through the Negev desert. And we will have our first segment of the tour. From there, it continues and goes through close to the Dead Sea that you see here in the middle of the map, and pay a visit also to the Judean mountain, where I'm currently pointing in Jerusalem area. Then it goes to the lowlands, where it goes along the sea till it reaches the northern part of the country, the Galilee, and there it's getting close to the Sea of Galilee, Kinneret, and finish or start, if you wish, at the northern part of the country, at the Golan Heights near the Hermon. Now, it started as a sequence of short segments of trail, which were later connected by one large trail. And as said before, this happened at 1995, and ever since that, people were working this trail. So we'll start and drop down here to this area where you see, hopefully in a second, as I'm getting close to it, you see the trail as the blue line, of course, going through all over Israel. And here you see this kind of crater, a big hole in the ground. And because this was not formed by a meteorite, we call it a unique phenomena, and I'll be using that name from this point onward, and that's called makhtesh, which is the name of that in Hebrew. So I hope that would not be too confusing, and that's kind of a unique geological phenomenon to Israel, and of course later I'll address that. So let's start with a few more names here, one of them being the shape of the area that we are going to walk on near the crater, which is, as you can see, the blue line here. And I hope that you'll agree with me that as we are getting close to it, that this shape somewhat resemble what you see here, which is the comb of a chicken. Therefore, that is called the comb. And getting back to where we were before, we're going to start with a relatively easy walk that is going to be here at the entrance to the makhtesh on this piece of land here that, funny enough, have a different name, and this is called after the fin of a fish. So we are all going to start walking at the fin. So please come join with me as we are making our first walk of the makhtesh. So as you can see, that's desert, meaning no green, nothing, almost. I will show you a little bit. And as you can see, there are very big sort of walls or turned land over here, like the comb that we've seen before. And another thing that I want to point out before started walking is the shadow of me walking here. As you can see, I have a bit of a sort of a halo above my head, that being the camera that Google took in order to picture this trail. And what I'm doing, I'm now just moving from frame to frame over the trail. And as you can see, I picked up for you something quite challenging in the sense that we are trying to hike up this trail. So the piece of land that we are now walking extend over something like 19 kilometers, some slightly more than 10 miles. And it's doing an ascension of something like 1,000 meters. So something like 3,000 feet of ascension. And you can see the people that are walking there just in front of me. And I'm the poor guy with the camera on top, and I'm trying to get to them, and it's a bit of a challenge, but as I'm doing that, we can have a look around. So we can start see part of the makhtesh, for example, this wall over here, and this structure that I'm currently pointing at. Later, as we arrive, we will be able to see it slightly better, and I'll give it a name. We can see that it's rather dry here. So we see bushes from time to time as we walk along, but the scenery is dry with a lot of limestone rocks that are there on the side. So I can have a look at them and admire the geology. And I'd like also to point out that I know my way because there are markers here that are telling me where to go. So I don't rely only on the people in front of me to tell me how to continue. Now, the trail was marked by Google, all of the trail, something like 6 years ago. And so today it is possible to do what I'm doing now, meaning to climb this rock over here. I'm using again the sign that I see all over the natural, the Israel trail from north to south, and have a look at these magnanimous rocks over there and turn my view all over downward and see the big makhtesh that is beyond me. With your permission, I continue the last climb over here and get to a plateau just to find out, as expected, that there's another hill waiting for us to visit, and my friends are already there. I should also mention that if you're planning to take such a hike at the desert where the makhtesh is at the Negev desert, you should be prepared with a suitable hat like the one that I'm using. Preferable is a flap hat, and take quite a lot of water with you. We're talking about taking minimum 2 to 3 liters per hiking day. And that, of course, brings the question, what does one do if you want to do multiple segments of the track, and you don't want to carry sort of tens of bottles of water? And luckily for us, there's a very good answer to that. I hope that you are okay with the pace that we're making in climbing the hill that is there in front of us. And the idea is that there are people who are willingly hiding or burying water as well as food in the desert for you, and you can agree with them in advance that they will fulfill the burial places so you can get there and find the water. And I hope that you can agree that this looks a bit warm, the sun just looking behind the rock here. So let me continue climbing the last segment up there and get you safely on top of the rock. So from here, we should be able to look on all of our surrounding and see, for example, this element here that I'll show you in the three-dimensional map by Google, in a sense, because that's called the big fin. I need to sort of disappoint you a bit, because what we've been climbing up so far, and we sort of covered so far something like 100 meters in climbing, is actually the small fin, and we're not yet at the top of it. And looking towards the makhtesh, we will later find our way in this direction, which would be the comb continuing, but not before we will reach the top point where my friends are already standing and having a wonderful view over all the surrounding. As you see, they put down their bags, and now we can have the look. This is the comb continuing for another 10 miles in this direction. This is the makhtesh from high above.
Itai?
Yeah.
When you're looking over the makhtesh, what direction are we looking? Is that Jordan or is that?
No, this is northwest, roughly. So we are looking, if we would continue walking in this direction, we would reach the Mediterranean. But a good question, and before going to the comb, I will show once again the bigger picture and then we can have a look, but that's the direction. And as said, the area here, and now I think you can grasp better the size of it, is called the big fin over the makhtesh. So as an answer, let's have a look at the full topography of the area. So if we are looking over the makhtesh, so this is north, and what we did now, we climb the small fin, which is here, and this is the big fin. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you towards one segment of the comb here, and that's coming in a second. Just let me see, and this is it. Okay, so now we're on one of the most interesting, as many people described it, points along the Israel National Trail. And this is because we are just having a wonderful view over the makhtesh. So close to us is the limestone that we are just standing at the edge of. And just overlooking the edge of it, we're looking something like 400 meters downward, 1,300 feet downward into the flatland underneath the makhtesh. And you can see that we came from this direction. That's where the fin was. We follow the trail and we are going in this direction. And walking here is quite challenging because as you can see, there's a rather big slope going downward here. So it's not only that you have to walk on hard land, this limestone, but you have to keep yourself sort of aligned always to the view. It's a hard stone and your soles are sometimes getting a bit crushed. And but it's really a wonderful walk because each time that you turn your view to the makhtesh, you see that with all its glory, and you can see up to the far side of the makhtesh. And if you turn your view to the left, then you see the slopes, the very steep slopes that are going downwards, this way, to the other direction. So it's quite a scenic walk, takes a full day to cover that, and it's taking your breath in the sense that it's both hard and it's a wonderful walk. But now I want to draw attention to how this makhtesh was created, and I'm going to do that using the clues that we can get just from the view. So one thing that we already saw is that we are walking on a very hard stone, a limestone, that is tilted in a very steep manner here. If we're looking at the ground, we see that from time to time, we would see some black pieces of stone. This is chert or flint, as it's called, and we see them from time to time. For example, here, this is the kind of stone that if you take pieces of it and hit them one with the other, you get a spark and you can make fire of it. So you can see them sort of hidden within the limestone. So that's one part of the clue. The other part of the clue is that if we continue going back to the big picture, we are somewhere here along the line, we can see that the other part of the makhtesh does not have this kind of steep inclination. It's going moderately down. So that's the second clue that we're going to have to the riddle of how this makhtesh was created. And the third one is these pieces of colorful patches on the bottom of the makhtesh that are so wonderful that I think it would be a good idea to have a close look at them. So this is a colorful sandstone that you see within the makhtesh. And if we continue to have a look at them, this is how it looks when you're having a closer look. So all colors of purple, orange, red, whatever. So no wonder that one of the main tasks that people are having when walking the makhtesh is taking these sand and filling bottles with these colorful sands and making pictures. And this is a picture showing how you can do it next time that you're arriving to the makhtesh. Just bring a big bottle with you, take a funnel and pick whatever color you want, push it through the funnel, and you can create magnificent pictures of it. So that was
Itai, you said that the first stone was flint. What was the second?
So what we see here is that this stone that we're walking upon, maybe just a sec, maybe that would be, so that stone is limestone. Within it, you find pieces of flint. So that's one clue. What we're looking downward and having a look at is sandstone. That's what you see underneath. So that's sort of the second clue. And the third clue that I've showed you, that on one side of the makhtesh, you got a very steep inclination, whereas the second side, the northwestern part, have sort of moderate inclination. So these are the type of stone that we see and the three clues. Okay?
Thank you.
Great. So that was a very good introduction to the next picture that would try to explain in a few minutes how this makhtesh was created. And this is how this place used to look like something like 140 million years ago. So it was a dry land as it is today, but there were rivers flying all around, flowing all around, and lakes, and in them the sandstone was deposited. So rivers were carrying sand with them with all kinds of colors because there was a bit of metal in them. So the sort of yellow element that you see here with the dots inside is sandstone that was deposited for many years. Next stage came the sea. The ocean covered all this area. And then the creatures living in the ocean, like the shark that we see here, the ammonites, which is that creature that does not exist today, when they died, they were fossilized and they created the limestone. And as you mentioned, the limestone included this kind of black thing, which is the chert. So we have the second stage of creating the makhtesh. Now came the third stage, that due to tectonic activity, there was a mountain that was created from these layers. I mean, the earth pushed the layers that we have there, and it created the mountain. And as you can see, that mountain have one side that is where the inclination is very slope, and the other one is rather moderate. Now come the tricky part, because the process that I've been describing so far happened all across Israel. But the important thing that happened here, therefore I will show it in very details, is that this mountain was not only having this kind of shape, but it was also going out of the ocean, as you're able to see here. So it was actually an island with trees and animals on top of it. And the fact that it was an island made it go through erosion process. because there were water and wind eroding the upper layer, the limestone layer of that mountain, and therefore the water were able to reach to the not that hard sandstone layer that we see underneath. So in order to have a makhtesh, you need to have all of these processes. You need to have sandstone, you need to have limestone, you need to have a mountain that have different inclination on other side, and most importantly, you need to have that mountain going above the sea as an island, so that the water and the wind will take out its upper part. So at the last stage, we would have the makhtesh. Because at the last stage, there is water coming here, and they are trying to go eastward, which is towards the Dead Sea. And because there's a big inclination here and a big inclination towards the Dead Sea, they are continuing to take the sandstone, which is being eroded much quicker than the limestone that remains here, and creating this huge crater. But as said, that is makhtesh because it was not a form of meteorite. So again, the three clues: we've seen limestone on top with chert inside, we've seen sandstone with the wonderful colors, and we see different inclinations, steep on the east part and moderate on the west part. So that's the answer to the riddle of the makhtesh. And just to, before we leave this area, I want to say that this phenomena happened several times in this area. So we have seen the big makhtesh here, but there's also a smaller one that I'm now taking you to. And you can see that it's very similar, meaning steep walls here, moderate here, and I'll take you closer so that you can see them here, and sandstone inside that gives you these wonderful colors of red and orange and brown within the makhtesh. And there's also a third one that's called the Ramon Crater, which is eastward to us. So if there are no further questions, I'd be glad to take you now to the next segment in our tour. That's okay, we'll move northwards.
I do have one question.
Great. Yeah.
The one that we didn't see, not the small one, the Ramon, is that where there's a center there where you can view a slideshow?
Yeah, certainly. There's a visitor center, so I'll take you there. The visitor center is here, and that's where you can see the slideshow, and there's a national park there that you can visit and talk also about the makhtesh.
Thanks.
Now, if we already made our way towards here, you can see that there's something strange in the sense that I've told you so far that there's a big and small, but the Ramon Crater is actually the biggest of them all. And the reason for that is that the order in which these makhteshim, the makhtesh, were found, they were discovered by Israelis who gave them these names at the 1940s, and they were all coming from the Dead Sea. So they first reached the small one, then they made their way to the bigger one. So they said, oh, we got a small one and a big one. And only then did they reach the Ramon Crater, which was the biggest of them all, so they have to give it a different name. And as you can see, the Israel Trail goes through all three craters, the small, the big, and the bigger, the Ramon Crater. Okay, if there are any further questions, I'll be glad to address them. If not, I suggest that we'll start making our jump northward. So I'm taking you now to the highest point in the National Trail of Israel. And as you can see, when I'm descending towards that, it's just between the Mediterranean to our left and the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret. And just wait and see how high is this point here. It's 1,200 meter, called the Meron Mountain, and something like 4,000 feet. And before having the Israel Trail going through this area, there was another trail that sort of encircled the peak of the mountain, and therefore it's called the Peak Trail. And if you're looking for a very short trail just for a day with easy walking and a lot of view, I would recommend this one, and in a minute you will see why. So I'm going to put you now within the scenery of the Israel Trail on top of the Meron. So this is quite different scenery from the dry land, because we're not talking about 100 to 200 millimeters of rain as there is in the Negev, but around 800 to 1,000 millimeters of rain here on the Meron Mountain. So very green area all year long. And also, if we are turning a view eastward, this is towards the Golan Heights, we are able to see all the mountains here are full with green trees and bushes, and that continue all the way down. If we turn our view to the fields down here, what we see in front of us, this is the city of Tzfat at the horizon. Just a sec, it will come out. I see that it's taking some time. Oh, now I hope you see it. That's the city of Tzfat here. And below it is Moshav, the village of Meron. And what we will do now is to start a relatively easy hike. If previously we were talking about 1,000 meters of climbing, here we would scarcely do 100 meters of climbing, as we are making our way around the Meron Mountain in the National Trail. So, as said in the beginning, the National Trail was opened in 1995 when they connected several of these trails together to make a long trail running all over Israel. And if before we were talking about the need to provide water at the desert, at the northern part of Israel, the one that we are walking it now, and having a lot of green around us, and if we're looking upward, which is what I'm doing now, you can see that I have a roof of green leaves and branches around my head, and that green continue whenever I'm looking. The issue at the north is not just to get water, because you have plenty here. Is the issue here is to get a room to sleep at, and that's why they came to exist in the idea of angels along the path. Israel Trail Angels, which are volunteers who are willing to let you sleep at their home while you're making your way along the trail, so you can do what is called a walkthrough, which is a word taken from other big national trail like the Appalachian, which was the idea that gave way for this trail. And these are kind and warm people who would let you into the house, allow you a nice comfortable bed, and give you a shelter from the storm if it's raining, and provide you with food, etc. And this is a really nice organization. Now, usually, as I said in the beginning, it takes 45 to 60 days if you are doing a walk through the trail. But I'm sure that you're also interested in what is the record of doing the trail, and that was done by American marathonist who was able to do that in just 10 days, meaning that every day he was doing something like 60 miles of running around the trail. He did that 4 years ago, and that still hold as the record. I would now like to take you a bit jump forward and to another location where we have a nice scenery here that is open to the view, and show you a bit of what you can gain by walking around the Meron. So you see again the green land underneath us. Some of it is forest, some of it is cultivated land. You see also a small lake here, but because the view today was not good, I chose another day that could show us somewhat better view, and this is what you see now in front of you. And you see for a very long distance, and you see somewhat a mountain in the horizon. This is the Hermon with the snow on top. And if you want to have an even better look, that's one for you. Here we see the lake that is underneath us. That's still the same view from the point around the Meron. You see the Hermon mountain, and in the horizon you see the Golan Height. As expected, this is a flat land with a few hills on top. The Golan Heights is a volcanic land, and these hills over here are reminiscence of the time that there were still eruptions, volcanic eruptions, and these are just the latest volcanic eruption that happened only 100,000 years ago. In geologicals mean this is basically yesterday. So this is the view that we have from here. And I want to continue our walk now towards another spot in the trail, which would show you that around the Meron, you may find snow. So given that it's a 1,200 meter mountain, at winter time, it's not that rare to have a snow. And you can imagine how lovely it is to walk around this trail with this not that much thick snow, but it's really cool. And the scenery both on your trail is really fantastic. Now, the next point that we have, we'll try to solve some of the ideas that are underlying the management of the trail. So just in terms of where we are towards the end of the circular path on the Meron. Before we leave the Meron, I'll show you the exact point. So we came from this direction, and we are heading, just a sec, towards this way in front of us. And what you see here is the kind of marking that we've seen also in the Negev. We see this kind of white with red in between, and a different marking. And now is the time to learn how you navigate your way along the trail. In order to do that, I need to show you a bit about lane marker in Israel. And this is what we are able to see here. What you see here on the left part of the screen are the regular trails, the one that existed in Israel starting from the 1950s. So in order to mark a trail, people were painting sort of 3 lines, 3 stripes, 2 white ones on the edges, and a colorful stripe in the middle. And it must be one of 4 colors: black, green, blue, and red. These are the only colors that you find in trail in Israel. So when they made the Israel National Trail, they decided on a new scheme of colors. So first you see that we have here white, blue, and orange. And the underlying idea was that we're talking about a trail that started the Negev, which is brown, as you see, goes along the sea that is blue, as we will see shortly, and reaches the northern part. And that's why I show you there's a bit of snow here, both along the Meron and also on the Hermon mountain at the top north of Israel. So that's one thing. But if you look carefully, you'll see that there's another difference apart from the colors between these stripes and the Israel national tribe. And this is the fact that these stripes are not aligned. There's either the white one going upward and the brown going downward, or vice versa. The brown going upward and the white going downward. And the reason for that is that this is a way for you to know exactly how to make your way. And let me show that with an example. It is here. So if we are looking carefully at the stone, we see that the marker is telling us to make a right turn. So that's easy. We see that both on the regular lane marker and on Israel national trail marker. But as we said before, the stripe on the regular marker are aligned, whereas in here we see that the white stripe on Israel track marker is going outward. So it means that if we continue in this direction, we are going to reach the sort of white part of the lane, meaning north. And if we are going this way, we're going to reach the brown part of the lane, which is in this direction, we are going south. So whenever you're reaching the trail and you want to know where you are, all you need to know is to look at the marker, and if it's the white one going outward, then you're going north, and if it's the brown one, then you're going south. So that's one thing to see in this area. The other thing, and that's why I'm glad that you brought your bottle of wine, is what we see here. We see what is called a gut, just like my surname. And that is an ancient agriculture area in which people were using to press graves with their feet. And the wine was, or the grapefruit was a grape juice, sorry, was coming from this sort tunnel here and collected here. And from here, they moved it into barrels or whatever to make wine. And what it tells us that people were living here also at ancient times. And the other thing is that because it's a high place, there were grapes and vineries all around this place. So that's another thing to look at when we are crossing this point. And the last thing is to say that what we're looking at is exactly the type of stone that we started our journey with near the makhtesh. This is a limestone. What happened here is that almost everything that happened in the makhtesh happened here. Underneath us, a few hundred meters underneath this place, you would find sandstone because there were rivers here carrying sand. On top of it, you see the limestone because there was an ocean covering this place and the fossils of animals created the limestones. And we are on top of a mountain, and that's a good point, a good time to have a look again at where we are. We are just at the last point in the circular path around the Meron. So we are really on the top of a mountain here. But the only thing that didn't happen here, and that's the reason that we have a mountain here and not a makhtesh, is that while this mountain was created, it was not going as an island above the sea. Therefore, it stayed a mountain, no makhtesh, sorry, only makhteshim at the Negev, and we got the Meron mountain here. So almost a makhtesh, but not exactly. So having said that, I'm going to take you now to the last segment of our tour, which is, as promised, near the sea, near the Mediterranean Sea that we see here to our left. And here you see that the trail is sort of making a bypass because it does not continue along the coast. Why this is so? This has to do with the fact that the trail does not go into cities and does not go into natural reserves, or I mean, any place that is not free of charge. The trail just goes around it. And we are now at Caesarea historical park, and therefore the trail would take you there, and you would get strongly recommended to enter the place, but the trail itself would make a bypass around Caesarea. So let's have a look at how this place looks like when we are at the sea level. And this is what you see: the Mediterranean with its waves. You see here that there's much more vegetation that you've seen at the Negev desert, but it's a different one from the one that we see at the Meron mountain. Less trees, less oaks, less pistachios like the one that we saw at the Meron, less of the Mediterranean vegetation, but rather small shrubs, thick leaves that can handle the fact that there's always a spray from the sea. And what you're already familiar now, that we're looking at a concrete cube with the marking of Israel Trail. And because the white stripe is going out of the marking, you can easily tell that if we're taking this road upward, we will reach the, anybody hazard to make a guess?
Haifa.
Yeah, we would be reaching the northern part of the trail. And just to show you that this rule applies everywhere, let me take you just around this area and have a look at the sign of the trail that you see at the other part of this cube. And here you see that the brown part is going out of the marking. So as expected, if we will take this direction, we will reach, and walk enough, we would reach eventually the Makhtesh and the Gulf of Eilat. So now we will make our way towards Caesarea, that is in this direction, just behind the wave breaker here. And what better way that we have to watch Caesarea is to have a look from above. And now look at the magnificent picture that we have from a drone taken on Caesarea. Here we see the port that was here. And I will say a few words later about exactly how it looked at ancient times. And over here, we see arches where at ancient time there was a warehouse that got all the import coming from the port. On top of it, there was a temple. The next picture will show us a different part of Caesarea, where here was the port, here was the temple that I just described, and here there's a very long stadium with sort of a curved ending. In a second, I'll say what it is. And here I would hazard there's another structure that is now in ruins, and I would say that that's another temple. And the last picture would show again the same scenery, but from the north. And here we see the big stadium. Here we see the temple. Here is the port. And if we turn our view, we see a lovely theater that is standing here from ancient time. Now you're all wondering how this place used to look like, and I've just got the picture for you, and here it is. So this is how Caesarea looked like in the time that it was built by King Herod 2,000 years ago. It was named after the Roman emperor of the time, Augustus Caesar, and therefore called Caesarea. And what you see here is the temple that is standing on top of the warehouses that we've seen before. And this was dedicated, of course, to Augustus. We see the huge port here with the lighthouse standing here, directing ships coming to the only small entrance that you see here. And here we see hippodrome. Hippodrome meaning a racing track for horses. So now you can understand why there's such a big stadium in Caesarea. And here you see the palace that King Herod built for himself, where here inside there was a pool of water, not salty water, but drinking water that one can use for drinking and swimming if the king would like, if King Herod would like to have it. And that's the theater that I was showing you before. So that's Caesarea in all its glory at around the 1st century BC, when being built by King Herod. And just to give you some scale as to the city that we see today, and especially the port, I would like to show you the map of Caesarea in very much detail. So this is Caesarea as of today. That is the port, this is the hippodrome, that is Herod Palace, and here downward is the theater. Now, if I would overlay the ancient city, you will see that the port was much bigger at the time. Today, the port reaches just this point, and it was not only going towards the sea, but it was also going inland. So water at King Herod time reached actually towards the temple. So ships coming here had a much easier task than doing today in order to bring the cargo up to the warehouses that we were still able to see today. And I'd like to finish the description of Caesarea with a story of something that took place just here at the place that I'm currently pointing. And I know exactly where this thing took place, because this happened to a friend of mine who was diving with a group of friends at the point that I've just showed you. It was 4 years ago, 2017. And he was diving one Saturday with his friend. They have a club. They call themselves Hazolelim, which is sort of a pun in Hebrew, because it's both defining people who are very hungry and want to overeat later, and both similar to the word of diving. And that's go to say that after they're doing their diving, they would like to go and eat something good. But on that Saturday, when they were diving in this area, they didn't have time to go on eating because of something that happened during this dive. And I want to show you now a bit of video of what happened to them during this dive. So here it comes. So what you're looking at now are underwater images. And here's a metal detector. And look at what these people are doing. They are collecting something from the sea. And if you look carefully, in a few seconds, you'll be able to see what they are collecting from the sea. I'll stop it at that point when that gentleman will show what he have in his hand. Here. I hope that you're able to see that they are collecting a few gold coins. Now, as the story goes, my friend and his friends were diving, and it was after a bit of a storm the week before. And when they were diving, they saw something glittering. At first, they thought that it might be the cover of some chocolate thing that people throw into the sea or something. But when they looked closer, they found that that's not the case, that these are coins and these are gold coins. And what they did is first, they marked the place with a few stones so they can tell how to get back to the exact location. They picked a few of these gold coins and immediately went to Israel Antiquities Society. And that's the next picture that I want to show you, because here it is. So this is my friend here with a couple of the divers. And if the image is kind of blurred, is because the camera that we're using to film this occasion was still covered with drop of seawater because they were hurrying so much. And here you see the plate that they brought to this guy here, who was responsible from Israel Antiquities Society. And they told him what they found. He got really excited, and he arranged for the group of divers who then went a day afterwards and continued looking for gold coins. So what you see here are actually now in this movie, actually the gold coins that were found in the second diving. And as you can see, they continue to find more and more coins as they're looking for them. And actually, they needed even a third diving in order to collect all the coins, all the gold coins that they found at the bottom of the sea. And in a second, we will see also that they are putting the stones in a bit of a bag. And then here you see again the coins that were found here. And they later put them in a bag that you see here and taking them upwards. Now, here is a picture of some of the gold coins that they found on the bottom of the sea. And as you can see, there are quite many of these coins, slightly more than 2,600 coins to give the right number. Or to put it in weight, this is something like 16.5 pounds of gold. So to put it in terms of value, so the kind of gold that they found here is worth, just by the gold value, something like $500,000. But that's of course not the real value of these gold coins, because if you're looking carefully at these gold coins, you see that there's Arabic writing on them. And what is possible to read from these coins is that they were minted by an Arab ruler 1,000 years ago, exactly 1,000 years ago, whose name was El-Hakim Bamrila, who was a sultan in Egypt. And these are the coins that were minted by him, and we don't know exactly why they were lost in the sea, but it was lucky for us to find them. Now, that's really nice thing to know that this is a 1,000-year-old coin, but that's not the end of the story, because that sultan was not just a Muslim sultan in Egypt. He was also the one who is responsible for the creation of what is now the Druze. The Druze are a religious community in Israel and in Syria and in Lebanon that have separated away from Islam exactly 1,000 years ago by the time of El-Hakim Bamrila. And probably, as far as we know, it was his idea that sort of started that religion and separated them from Islam. So my friend and his friend were noted by Israelis as people who did the right thing in reporting the gold treasure to Antiquities Society, but more than that, they were honored by the Druze, because I can compare Il-Hakim Bamrila for the Druze like Moses is to Jews as the main figure in the formation of the religion. And therefore, try to imagine what it would be for us Jews to find the coin that the name Moses would have been written on it. So, of course, my friend got a notice from the Druze and a very big thank and a prize for finding that treasure and letting the Druze have another part of their heritage being described. So with that story, I'd like to end our short walk of the Israel National Trail. So just to summarize, we have seen the trail starting from the south, from the Negev part, from the brown part of Israel, and talked about a unique geological phenomenon, the makhtesh. We visited the north part of Israel and watched the green part there with the lavish trees and the scenery that covers the Golan Heights, Mount Hermon, and all the area around the Meron, and finished with the story of one of the biggest treasures ever found in Israel, just nearby the Israel Trail in Caesarea. And I hope that that would tempt you more than ever to come to Israel and when there, try and walk some of its part, either the more challenging or the most relaxed. I think that you have now the knowledge of how to find your way along the trail, to know if you're going northbound or southbound, to know how the trail markers look like, how much water you need to take, and to find angels along the way. So thank you. And if you still have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Itai. Does anybody have any questions?
No,
No.
it was interesting though, really fascinating. Thank you.
And it's become a little bit of a pilgrimage post college or high school for Israelis. When do people kind of walk it for the most part, Itai?
Yeah, so it's really a pilgrimage, as you said, and either before going to the army, when adolescents have time, they do that. So they're taking, as said, a month and a half, 2 months, and do it as a walkthrough, or which is more customary to do that just after the army service. The time that you usually do that would be towards the end of winter, around February, start at Eilat. So Negev desert would not be as hot as it is these days. I mean, just yesterday it was around 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the Negev desert. And to sort of end at the Galilee around April timeframe, which is the time where everything is in huge flourish.
Helen?
I would just like to say, with all the times we've been to Israel, the last time we went, we did Makhtesh Ramon, had never been there before, and it was absolutely spectacular. It was a 4-generation trip, and it was amazing. Also, the Ilan Ramon memorial is there, and we won't even go into Bereshit Hotel, which is a whole nother life-building experience. But I would recommend for anybody who has the opportunity to go down there to the Makhtesh. It is, there are just no words. I mean, when you're in there, there are just no words to describe it. And we were there in August, by the way. It was not a cool day.
It's a bit challenging. So I try to give the taste of that view, the the amazing slopes that allows you to see for 1,300 feet just in a few miles downward, which is, as you said, amazing view with all the colors and all the geological phenomena. Yeah, highly recommended.
Itai, I can't thank you enough for being with us all this month, and I know we're finishing up, and I hope everybody will join us this Sunday at 2 o'clock as we visit Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people, and an important place for every faith, actually. It'll be a very interesting time. I wanted to, Helen Griffin behind the scenes sent me a text saying this was driving her nuts, saying, how come we can't be there yet? And I feel the same way. This is the first 12-month period that I have not been in Israel in a long time. But I wanted to share just a minute about our federation's both local and national work. I've had the honor to spend a ton of time in the Negev, around the Makhtesh and the surrounding cities. And there is a huge movement in Israel to move people from the center, the Tel Aviv, Jerusalem corridor, where Itai, I think still 80% of the population of Israel is. What's the?
Yeah, even most of the population is concentrated around the Tel Aviv area, yeah. Yeah.
And to move as many as we can in the population, both north and south, for a variety of security, regional cost, economic reasons, a variety of them. And it's tough to defend land when you don't have somebody there. And some of the work that we've been doing together with JNF, federations, all of them in some really inspiring stories of young people who are truly going back to their world as chalutzim and pioneers and saying, I'm going to raise my hand and live in some places fairly remote parts of Israel and settle and learn and work with the communities in that area is really inspiring. I'm looking forward to, as soon as we are able, Brian finally being able to say that he has led a mission to Israel and actually stepped in Israel. We are looking, I was on the phone with the Israel Tourism Board and the foreign agency just earlier this week. They're looking at opening back up again. We have some opportunities to send some young people to Israel in the coming months. That we're really excited about. So stay tuned. I hope you will join us Sunday. I hope you will also check out Jewish Richmond. We are blessed to have a shaliach, an emissary who's working with us virtually to do a variety of Israel programs. He is awesome. He's very knowledgeable, really interesting. He did a session earlier on Israeli elections, part 4 or 3 at the time. And I think you'll enjoy that. You can find that all on jewishrichmond.org, and hopefully you're checking out our regular emails. Last and not least, Brian, thank you for walking us down the trail or up the trail. And Itai, thank you as well. If anybody wants to hang out, we can. Otherwise, I'll give it a couple minutes and let you get on with the day.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us.
Itai, thank you so much. That was interesting. Anybody have any questions?
No, I just wrote in the chat, though, that I absolutely second Helen's comments. It really is a place not to be missed.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So
didn't experience the hotel, though.
Well, Bereshit is a fairly new phenomenon that is not, well, not Bereshit the Bereshit, but Bereshit the hotel that is
not to be missed.
Not to be missed, but you do have to like save up some money to stay there. It's not an expense either.
Sell the children, sell the house, whatever you have to do. Just don't.
Itai, are you bringing us to Bereshit?
Yeah, just imagine it's here, sitting on the cliff, and just try to imagine what magnificent view you have from here all over the makhtesh.
Isn't that it right there, or is that an older photo? It's not actually in this photo.
Yeah. It's, as far as I remember, here.
What's magnificent?
Oh, it's here.
It's there. That's what I thought, the circular thing.
Yeah.
So everybody gets their own little room and you overlook the makhtesh. Some rooms have its own little pool. It's pretty remarkable. But yeah, you have to sell a child.
Davening with this, it was, I don't remember, it was sunset or sunrise, looking out over that makhtesh was, there are just no words.
So try to imagine this kind of view with all the colors and the sun. That's amazing.
It's like really the first luxury high-end hotel in the south, that far south for sure. Noga, our guide from Giant Leaps, is already making notes. Okay, we have to go to Bereshit now, and you know, we just extended our trip. So thank you.
Increase the price.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. We can't do Bereshit at the discounted price. That's for sure.
So you can understand why the trail just take this route here. I mean, you see the blue trail just going over the edge of the makhtesh. You can imagine how beautiful it is. And you can just, whenever here, either take a very short walk along this way and enjoy this magnificent view, or if you're being a bit more adventurous, go down the path and enjoy that also by walking.
Or hop in a Jeep.
Or hop in a Jeep, yeah.
Helen, you know how to travel, girl.
It was, I'm telling you, with all the times I've been to Israel, that will, my grandchildren are continuing to go, can we go back? Can we go back? Can we go back? Like, no, next time it's grown-ups only.
Thank you, everybody. Itai, shalom, thank you.
Shalom.
Noga, thank you. Brian, I saw you put your vest on. You must have gotten cold as we went north to the snow.
A little chilly in the north, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Itai, in the middle, right at the end, when you were, just after you were talking about snow, we had like a weird hailstorm in my office.
Ooh.
That was not, it was not small hail. It was pretty good sized hail. I don't know what was going on, but that was the best hike I've ever had in the hail. So that's good. So.
Okay.
All right. Everybody have a great afternoon.
Bye, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Brian,
Bye.
we'll see you later. Bye.